Chapter 10. I stood in the conservatory at 2:30 in the morning with a torch, wondering if I'd finally lost my mind. "This is absurd," I muttered. "It's brilliant," Claude said from behind me. He was crouched by the wall that bordered Kim's property, setting up one of Tim's contraptions, a speaker no bigger than a matchbox, connected to a timer. "It's cruel. It's necessary." He adjusted something, checked his watch. "Timer's set for 3:15, sale. Should give us enough time to get back inside and into position." I looked at the device. Tim had rigged it to play a recording. Voices, movement sounds, just loud enough to carry over the wall into Kim's back garden. Loud enough that she'd hear it if she was awake, which she would be. "The lights worked then," I said. "Like a charm." Claude grinned. His expression looked almost feral in the torchlight. I was watching from the kitchen window. Saw her curtains twitch about 10 minutes after the attic light began flickering. That had been Tim's job, rigging the attic light to turn on and off at irregular intervals, visible from Kim's upstairs windows. Nothing dramatic, just enough to look suspicious. "And if she doesn't call it in?" I asked. "She will," Claude said with absolute certainty. "She's been trying to get something on us for months. Now she's got her evidence. She won't be able to resist." When the Grimms arrived, they'd find an old woman asleep and her lodger snoring. Nothing suspicious at all. "Come on," Claude said, standing. "We need to be inside before that goes off." We crept back through the conservatory. Tim was waiting in the kitchen, monitoring 3 different timers spread across the counter. "Speakers set?" he asked. 3:15, Claude confirmed. "Good. Scrabbling sounds as if someone's climbing over the back wall at 3:20. Light in the greenhouse on at 3:25, off again at 3:30. "And we're where?" I asked. "In bed," Tim said. "Dead asleep, completely innocent." Noah appeared in the doorway. "Eden's already down in the cellar, says he'd rather be underground when this happens, just in case." I didn't blame him. If this went wrong, if Kim somehow convinced the authorities there really was something here, we'd need people safe below. "You should go too," I said to Noah. "No." His jaw set in that stubborn way he'd inherited from his mother. "I want to see her do this. I need to accept it." The kitchen clock ticked towards 3:15. We stood in the darkness, listening to the house settle. Somewhere outside, a cat yowled. Then, right on schedule, voices drifted over the wall. Muffled, indistinct, but definitely human. I moved to the kitchen window, staying back from the glass. Across the way, Kim's bedroom light snapped on. "There!" Claude breathed. She heard it. We watched Kim's silhouette move across her window. She stood there for a long moment, clearly listening. Then she disappeared. "She's making the call," Noah said. His voice was flat, empty. "Probably," I agreed. The voices cut off at precisely 3:20. The scrabbling noises started and stopped. Then silence for 5 minutes before the greenhouse light clicked on, illuminating the garden. Kim's curtain twitched again. The light went dark at 3:30. We'd timed it perfectly. Just enough activity to seem real, not staged. Now we waited. "How long do you think?" Claude asked. 30 minutes, Tim said. "Maybe less if she convinced them it was urgent. Maybe more if they're busy with other calls. Or maybe they won't come at all," Noah said. "Maybe they'll tell her to stop wasting their time." "Not yet," I said. "This is her second report this week. They'll take it seriously. They'll want to make sure they're not missing something. After a few more false alarms, though." "Bed," Tim said firmly. "We need to be convincingly asleep when they arrive." He raced around dismantling his equipment. "Right," I said. "Tim and I need to get upstairs to our respective rooms. You two need to be in the cellars now." "What if they search the shed? The tunnel?" "They won't," Tim said. "They're responding to a report about lights and voices. They'll check the house, maybe peek in the conservatory and greenhouse, but they won't go digging around the shed at 4 in the morning unless they find something that gives them cause." Noah still looked uncertain. "Go," I said. "Even if they do search the shed, they won't find anything. It's filthy and smelly. They won't want to linger in there." They went. Tim and I climbed the stairs together. At the landing, we paused. "This is really happening," I said. "Yes. We're deliberately manipulating an elderly woman into destroying her own credibility with the authorities she trusts. We're protecting ourselves," Tim corrected, "from someone willing to get us killed." He was right. I knew he was right. but it still felt wrong. "Get some sleep," Tim said. "Or at least pretend to. The Grimms will wake us soon enough." He disappeared into his room. I went to my own room, making sure to put on my most concealing pajamas. I put my biggest dressing gown handy too, and climbed under the covers. The sheets smelled of lavender from the sachets in the airing cupboard. Above me, the ceiling showed water stains from some long-ago leak. I closed my eyes, tried to relax, failed completely. 27 minutes later, someone hammered on the front door and leaned on the bell. I let them knock 3 times before I got up, made myself move slowly, fumbling for my dressing gown. Tim's door opened at the same time. We met on the landing, both of us looking appropriately disheveled and confused. "What on earth?" I said loudly enough for whoever was outside to hear. "I'll go," Tim offered, but I shook my head. "It's okay, I'm here now." Down the stairs, switching on lights as I went. The hammering continued, impatient and authoritative. I opened the door to find 2 Grimms, not the ones from this morning, younger, sharper looking. One had hair scraped back so tight it looked as if it might pull her face under the helmet. Her partner glared at me as if I was the one disturbing his sleep. "Miss Beryl?" the woman asked. "Yes? What's wrong? Is there a fire?" "We've received a report of suspicious activity at this address. Lights at unusual hours. Voices in the back garden. May we come in?" "Suspicious activity? Here? But I've been asleep. I went to bed at 9 o'clock. I always do." "May we come in?" she repeated. I stepped back. "Of course. Would you like a cup of tea, dear? Chamomile? Peppermint?" They ignored me and entered, boots loud on my wooden floors. Tim appeared halfway down the lowest flight of stairs, yawning convincingly. "What's going on?" he asked. "These officers say there's been suspicious activity," I explained. "Lights and voices. Can you imagine? Have you heard anything?" The male Grimm was already moving through the ground floor, checking rooms. His partner stayed with us, watching our faces. "Your neighbor reported flickering lights in your attic window," she said, "followed by voices in your back garden and the sound of people climbing over the wall." "Flickering lights?" I frowned. "I haven't been up there tonight. It's true, though, that the attic light's been dodgy for weeks. I keep meaning to replace the bulb, but I get dizzy on the stepladder and I trailed off. "You don't think the wiring's faulty, do you? Could it be dangerous?" The Grimm's expression didn't change. "We'll check." And they did. Thoroughly. The male Grimm went upstairs, his boots heavy on each step. The woman moved through the conservatory and the greenhouse, her torch beam cutting through the darkness. She even put her head into the shed, but hastily withdrew after the first lungful of fetid air. I sat at the breakfast room table yawning. I was shattered. Tim went down the hall with them and saw them out the front door, but not before I heard him say, "I'm horribly afraid our neighbor is, losing it a bit." I didn't hear their reply. I was stunned that Tim had said that. There was no doubt about it. I was having problems with how we were taking Kim down, but I had to keep in the forefront of my mind that it was her or us, and any other way of making her ineffective would be a lot worse. I was checking the runner beans for slugs when Kim appeared at the wall. Not over it, thankfully. Just her face, peering down at me from her side. The wall between our properties is old brick, about 5 feet high, with a good coating of moss on her side where the sun doesn't reach. "I know what you're doing," she said. I didn't say anything, just kept checking for slugs. One was halfway up the stalk already. I flicked it off. "I heard voices," Kim continued. "In your garden, at 3 in the morning. Don't pretend you didn't know about it." 3 in the morning? I straightened up. "Kim, I haven't been awake at 3 in the morning since 1987, unless I needed the loo." "There were lights flickering in your attic window." "The wiring's dodgy up there," I said. "I told the officers that when they came. I keep meaning to get it sorted, but electricians are so expensive these days, and with the rationing..." I trailed off, letting her fill in the rest herself. Her face went red. "You're lying." "About electricians being expensive?" "About all of it." Her voice rose. "I know what I heard, what I saw. You're up to something in that house, and I'm going to prove it." I bent back to the beans. Found another slug, this one tiny, barely visible. Persistent little buggers. Sometimes I think this place must be slug central. "Kim, dear," I said gently, "are you feeling quite well? Because if you're having trouble sleeping or hearing things that aren't there, that can be a sign of... Don't you dare, she hissed. Don't you dare suggest I'm losing my mind. I know what I heard. The back door opened. Tim appeared, wiping his hands on a tea towel. Everything all right, Beryl? Fine, dear. Kim's just checking in. Tim looked at Kim. She was still glaring in our direction. Morning, Mrs. Reeve. Nice day for it. For what? Kim snapped. Being outside. Fresh air. Good for the constitution. He smiled pleasantly. Would you like to come round for a cup of tea? Beryl's made shortbread. The offer seemed to enrage her further. I don't want your tea. I don't want anything from this house, except the truth. Well, the truth is we've got lovely shortbread, Tim said, and questionable wiring, and possibly the worst slug problem in the neighborhood. Anything else you'd like to know? Kim's mouth opened and closed. Then she disappeared from view. We heard her footsteps retreating across her garden. I looked at Tim. That was unkind. She reported us twice in 4 days, he said. She's trying to get us disappeared. I think I'm entitled to be a bit unkind. He wasn't wrong, but watching Kim's humiliated retreat, I still felt uncomfortable. She's going to keep trying, I said. I know. Tim went back inside. I returned to the slugs, but my heart wasn't in it anymore. Noah and Eden's argument started in the conservatory and migrated through the house like a storm system. I was in the kitchen when it reached peak volume. Can't keep doing this. Noah's voice, raw with emotion. We can't stop. Eden shot back. Do you want her to succeed? Do you want to end up in a detention center? I want to not be the kind of person who systematically destroys an old woman's life. She's not just an old woman. She's our mother, and she chose the regime over us, over her own children. This is about who we are, what we're willing to do, where we draw the line. The line? Eden's laugh was bitter. The line is survival. Everything else is luxury. Is it? Is surviving like this worth it if we become people we don't recognize? There was a long pause. Then Eden, quieter. I recognize myself just fine. Maybe you're the one who's changed. Maybe I have. Noah's voice was barely audible. Maybe I need to figure out who I am when I'm not just reacting to what she did to us. What does that mean? It means I need to think, away from here, away from all of this. You're leaving? I need some space. I heard footsteps, the back door opening and closing. Then silence. Eden appeared in the doorway. His face was blotchy, eyes red. He's gone, he said. I heard. He'll come back. Will he? Eden's jaw tightened. He always does. He just needs to process things. Needs time to get his head sorted. And you? I'm fine. He wasn't fine. Neither of them were fine. Claude appeared behind Eden, put a hand on his shoulder. Come on, let's make some tea. I don't want tea. You never want tea. Come on anyway. Try not to worry about Noah. I know him well. He's my partner, remember? He just needs a little while on his own. They disappeared into the breakfast room. I heard the quiet murmur of Claude's voice. I put the kettle on and stood in the kitchen, wondering just how much of ourselves we would destroy while trying to destroy Kim. 3 days later, we staged another incident. Lights in the greenhouse at midnight. Recorded sounds of spade-on soil digging played through the same speaker we'd used before. The Grimms arrived at 1:30. Different ones again. They were less polite than the last lot. This is the third report in a week, the older one said. He had grey stubble and the look of someone who'd been woken from deep sleep. From the same source. About the same property. I'm sorry you've been troubled, I said. I've been asleep, as I was the other times. Your neighbour is very insistent that there's illegal activity here. My neighbour is. I paused, trying to choose my words carefully. Very vigilant. That's one word for it. He looked around the kitchen with tired eyes. We've searched this house twice now. Found nothing. We're starting to wonder if Mrs. Reeve understands the seriousness of false reports. They did a cursory search. Barely glanced in the conservatory. Didn't bother with the greenhouse at all. If we're called here again, the Grimm said at the door, we'll be having words with your neighbour about wasting enforcement time. There are penalties for that. I understand, I said. After they left, I sat at the breakfast room table and stared at nothing. Tim found me there 20 minutes later. You heard, I asked. Most of it. They're going to warn her, maybe penalise her. Good. I looked at him. Is it? Is any of this good? He pulled out a chair, sat down across from me. What exactly do you think we owe her? Common decency? Decency is a luxury for people who aren't fighting for their lives. He sounded like Eden, or perhaps Eden sounded like him. When did you become so hard? I asked. I immediately wished I hadn't, but it was too late. Tim was quiet for a moment. Then, when they disappeared my uncle for owning a chemistry set, when they arrested my supervisor for teaching real science instead of regime propaganda, when I realized that being kind and following the rules wouldn't save any of us. He met my eyes. It's not that I'm hard, Beryl. It's that I'm realistic. And realism says Kim has to be dealt with. It's her or us. Those are the only options. Those are the only options that end with us still alive and free. I knew he was right. Hated more that I agreed with him. Have you heard from Noah? I asked. Do you know where he is? No. And no. He's still gone. No message. Eden's pretending not to worry. And you? I think Noah will be back when he's ready. He's not stupid. He knows what's at stake. He just needs to make peace with it, in his own way. The scream woke me at 2:30 in the morning. I was out of bed, had grabbed my dressing gown, and was halfway down the stairs before I was fully conscious. Tim appeared from his room. I hoped Claude and Eden hadn't heard it from the cellars. What was that? Tim asked. The scream came again. We looked at each other. Could be a fox, Tim suggested without much conviction. That wasn't a fox, I said, moving towards the back door. The security light had come on in Kim's garden. I could see a shape on the ground near the wall. A person. Oh, Gord, Tim breathed. Kim, I called. There was a whimper in response. I ran down the length of the wall until I reached her. Her security light was largely cut off on my side by the wall itself, but it was enough for me to see where I was going. By this time, Tim had appeared with a torch. She was crumpled at the base of the wall, with one arm twisted beneath her at an angle that made my stomach turn. Don't move, I said, kneeling beside her. You might have hurt your back. My arm, she gasped. I think it's broken. I'm calling an ambulance, Tim said. He gave me the torch and disappeared. Kim's face was white with pain and shock. I was just trying to look, just trying to see what you were hiding. You climbed the wall, I said. It wasn't a question. I had to know. I had to prove. She made a sound that might have been a laugh or a sob. But there was nothing, was there? Just like they said, nothing at all. The ambulance took 14 minutes. The Grimms arrived 6 minutes after that, because apparently emergency services always alert enforcement when elderly women end up injured in their gardens at 3 in the morning. As if. They must have come because this address was now on a suspect list thanks to Kim. They brought her into my kitchen so the paramedics could check her out properly, having ascertained that her spine was okay. The Grimms asked questions. How did I know she was hurt? Did I see her fall? What was she doing out here? I don't know what she was doing out there, I said. I heard her scream. I came to help. One of the Grimms went outside, came back with dirt on his boots and a sour expression. There's a stepladder against the wall, he said to his partner. On her side. She was trying to climb over. They both looked at Kim, now strapped to a gurney, her arm splintered. At 3 in the morning, the female Grimm said. You were climbing the wall into your neighbor's garden. Kim's face flushed. I heard noises. I thought. You thought you'd conduct your own investigation, the Grimm finished. Despite being told twice that there was nothing suspicious about this property. Despite being warned that false reports are a serious offense. It wasn't false. I heard. What you heard, the Grimm said coldly, was apparently nothing. What you've done is broken your arm, wasted emergency resources, and committed attempted trespass. We'll be adding this to your file. She was taken away to go to the hospital. The Grimms stayed for another 20 minutes, asking more questions, making notes. When they finally left, one of them paused at the door. Your neighbor is becoming a problem, she said to me, for everyone, including herself. I said nothing. After they'd gone, I sat in my breakfast room and watched the sky lighten. Tim made tea. Claude and Eden had somehow become alerted to the uproar and appeared from the cellars when they were sure everyone had gone. They wanted to make sure we were okay. This is working, Eden said. She's discrediting herself. She broke her arm, I said, because she was trying to break into our property. Because we made her desperate enough to try. We didn't make her do anything, Eden said. I wanted to argue. But I was too tired, and I'd seen Kim's face as they loaded her into the ambulance. Humiliated. In pain. We'd done that. I need some air, I said, and went out to the garden to commune with my runner beans. But it was cold, so I climbed down into the tunnel and into the cellar. It was cool and quiet. I sat on one of the crates and rested my head in my hands. I knew this palaver with Kim was necessary. It was self-defense. It really was. Even so, bit early for meditation, isn't it? Thad's voice made me jump. I looked up as he and Greg emerged from the tunnel entrance. Greg carried a thermos and a paper bag from which wafted the aroma of fresh bread. "We heard the ambulance," Thad said, settling onto a crate across from me. "Figured you might need company." "You seem to know everything that happens here," I muttered. "We pay attention," Greg said, pouring liquid into the thermos lid cup. "Here, it's real cocoa. Not that synthetic shit." I took it. The warmth felt good in my hands. "Kim climbed the wall," I said. "Fell, broke her arm." "We know," Thad said. "We saw. We've got a camera angle that covers your back garden and hers." "Of course you do." "She was trying to find evidence," Greg said. "Trying to prove she wasn't crazy. That she really did hear something." "We made her desperate," I said. Thad and Greg exchanged a look. "You did what you had to do," Thad said. "We've been watching this play out. It's obvious what you're doing, and it's the right move." "It doesn't feel right." "No," Greg said. "It probably doesn't. But feeling bad about it means you're still human, means you haven't lost yourself to the necessity of it all." I sipped the cocoa. It was rich and sweet, and tasted like a world that didn't exist anymore. "Kim's not going to stop," I said. "No," Thad agreed. "She's too invested now, too humiliated. She'll keep trying to prove she was right. So we keep going, keep staging things, keep making her look foolish until the authorities won't respond to her calls anymore." "Exactly. And I'm supposed to be fine with that." Thad leaned forward. "You're supposed to survive it. There's a difference." Greg pulled bread rolls from the paper bag. "We want to help with the next one." "Help how?" "Stage it ourselves," Greg said. "You don't need to know what. You don't need to be involved. We'll set something up that Kim will definitely report. The Grimms will come. They'll find nothing. You'll be completely innocent because you will actually be innocent." "Why?" I asked. "Because you're carrying too much guilt already," Thad said. "We can see it. And because we've got experience with this sort of thing. And because we're your network partners, and this is what networks do, we share the load." I looked between them. These two men I barely knew, who'd been watching us for months, who seemed to know everything that happened in this neighborhood before it happened. "I won't know what you're planning." "No, that's the point," Greg said. "Plausible deniability. When the Grimms ask if you know anything about suspicious activity in your garden, you can honestly say no." "When?" I asked. "Tomorrow night," Thad said. "Kim will be back by then. You just stay inside, stay innocent, and let us do what needs doing." Part of me wanted to say I could handle my own problems, fight my own battles, but a larger part was just tired. Tired of the guilt, the moral calculations. "All right," I said. Thad smiled. It made him look almost kind. "Good, now eat something. Greg's bread is the only thing worth living for in this whole dystopian nightmare." "That's not true," Greg said. "There's also my pastries." "Are there pastries in that bag?" "No." "Then the bread's the only thing." Despite everything, I almost smiled. They stayed for another hour, told me stories about their own resistance work, the close calls they'd had, the systems they'd built, made me feel less alone in this messy, compromising work of staying alive and free. When they left, disappearing back through the gap in the wall like theatrical ghosts, I felt lighter. Not good, not absolved, but lighter. I climbed back upstairs to find Tim in the kitchen, scrambling eggs. "You were gone a while," he said. "Thad and Greg showed up. They're handling the next incident. I don't want to know what they're planning." Tim nodded slowly, probably for the best. He plated the eggs, added toast, put it in front of me. "Eat. You need your strength for the moral crisis." I looked at him. Was that a joke? Possibly. I'm new to humor. "How am I doing?" "Terribly." "I'll keep practicing." I ate the eggs. They were good. Real eggs, too, not reconstituted. Outside, the sun was fully up. Another day pretending everything was normal while the world fell apart, but we were still here, still free, still fighting in our small, compromised ways. That would have to suffice.